Hi, this is Phil Necro. You're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Welcome into On Deck. This is one of my favorite things to do is bring somebody else on to talk about everything going on in baseball. Unfortunately, there's no baseball going on, but I wanted to bring in Kevin McAlpin from 680 The Fan in Atlanta to kind of talk about everything going on around baseball. So, Kevin, how you doing, man?
Man, I'd be doing better if I was going to the ballpark here in a couple hours, but we're making it through for sure. We're doing the best we can.
So, Kevin, I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk to you about is there's so much uncertainty right now around the game. A lot of debates, a lot of figures, a lot of dollar signs thrown around on social media. Is there any way you can kind of, not necessarily dumb it down, but sort of simplify both sides of the argument just so I can get an idea and so my audience can get an idea of what's going on?
Yeah, well, I think from the player's standpoint, they want to play as many games as possible. You've seen that in all the proposals they've sent to Major League Baseball and the owners. And the owners have come back essentially with the complete opposite end of the spectrum. I talked to a couple of players none of whom wanted to go on the record with it, but they basically said, look, we're getting the same proposal, just worded differently. You know, they've gotten 3 or 4 different proposals from Major League Baseball that have essentially boiled down to about 33% of their salary. So, you know, they're a little upset. They're a little ticked off that Major League Baseball is not moving off those numbers, and they feel like they have. So they feel like there's been some wasted time the last couple of weeks where they could have made progress, and the owners basically just sent them back the same proposal worded completely differently. So, you know, at this point, you know, it's basically in the commissioner's hands. He has the ability to say, look, you're playing 50 games, take it or leave it. Now, you know, the players can come back and file a grievance. Players could opt to sit out. The example I keep using is Mookie Betts, who's going to be getting a big-time mega contract this offseason. Is it worth for him to play 50 games at 30% of his salary? He would probably tell you no. So that's what I wonder. You know, I'm still holding out hope we're going to see baseball in some fashion this year. I'm not crazy about a 50-game season. Part of the thing I love about baseball is the fact that it is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And you turn a 162-game season into 50, literally anything can happen. This time last year, the Nationals were 19-31 through 50 games. The Giants were 31-19. How'd that work out for both teams? Pretty good for the Nationals, not as good for the Giants. So I'm not crazy about it, but you know what? If it means I get to go to the ballpark a handful of times and talk about the game we love the most, and it's 50 games, I'll take it. I won't be crazy about it, but that's sort of where it feels like things are headed right now.
You sort of share my attitude with it, but I wanted to talk to you just about kind of what most fans are feeling. To me, it seems like there's 2 camps, like on most of social media. Either most of them are, you know, not crazy about the proposed amount of games, and basically say with whatever this proposal is, whether it be 48 games, 54, 72, that there's no point in having a season. And then the other just wants baseball back on TV. What would you say as a, you know, are you somewhere in the middle ground, or do you lean a certain way with that?
You know, I felt like anything less than 80 games doesn't feel legit. I mean, you know, if you can get half a season in and you crown a World Series champion, I don't know that, you know, you have the conversation that you'd have about, you know, asterisks and records and what's legit and what's not if you only play 50 games. To me, the 50 number, I just don't like it. I'm not crazy about it. So I think that anything less than 80 just doesn't feel legit. Now, that being said, folks here in Atlanta, Braves fans, if your team wins the World Series, are you going to be upset about it? Are you not going to go to the parade? Are you not going to want to see the trophy? I don't think any of that would be the case, but you're going to have 29 other fan bases and teams that are going to look at you and maybe not look at that as legit as it could be. So, you know, I fall in the camp that I feel like anything less than 80 just doesn't feel right. Again, there could be expanded playoffs. You know, you could have 14 or 16 teams. I'm not necessarily crazy about that either, but if it means I get more baseball, again, hopefully this is the outlier year and this is the one year where we have to talk about these kinds of things. I'll take it for this year if it means we get to go to the ballpark a few times.
Right, I share that sentiment right there with you, Kevin. A lot of the players around baseball, and even a few Braves, you mentioned you talked to a few over the past couple of weeks, but a lot of them have taken to social media, and the caption that has been going around is, "Tell us when and where, and we're ready." What is the overall mood that you're getting from players that you've talked to, and just they want to play, right?
Oh, they want to play. Yeah, I mean, here in Atlanta, You've got a number of guys working out together basically every day. You've got a group of pitchers, Mike Fultonevich, Mike Soroka, Sean Newcomb, a couple other guys have been working out just about every day. You've got the hitters in Ronald Acuna and Charlie Culberson and Johan Camargo and Ozzie Albies. They've been working out together at a local batting cage to stay ready. These guys want to play. I know the conversation always comes back to money, but these guys have been playing baseball since they're 3 years old, 4 years old. This is all they know is playing baseball. They want to play, and they're united in that they want to play. Now, at the same time, they also want to be treated fairly. They don't want to be taken advantage of. I think that, some of these owners are saying, well, we're going to lose X amount of dollars if we play in front of empty stadiums. Well, the players are saying, well, prove it. Show us those numbers. At the same time, you also can't guarantee that stadiums are going to be empty all year. Now, it's probably more likely than not in most markets that they would play in empty ballparks all year. But, again, there's hope that maybe in September, maybe for the playoffs, you could open it to 25, 50% capacity. Maybe we'll see what happens. But these guys want to play. Believe me, they want to play. It's all they know. And I think of guys like a Charlie Culberson, for example. He was a fan favorite the last couple of years, had some great moments. He ended up being non-tendered this offseason. He came back on a minor league deal because he wanted to be back with the Braves. He's fighting and clawing and scratching for a roster spot. If they don't play, guys like Charlie Culberson, might have to be forced to go do something else. Find a job. Again, there's probably folks out there watching this that are going to say, well, these guys are superstar athletes. They're multimillionaires. Well, not so fast. 65% of guys in Major League Baseball are making $1 million or less a season. Now, when you break that down, let's say the guys that are making league minimum, they're making $575,000. Let's use a rough number. If they're going to get a third of their salary, you're under $200,000. You pay your agent, right? You pay your taxes. You've got a different lifestyle than any of us can imagine. You're less than 200 grand is going to be going like that. So I worry about guys, especially minor league players, man. They're going to be forced to do something different. They're going to be forced to be in the real world like the rest of us. And again, I know there's some folks that will say, well, boo-hoo. But that's a big deal. And I feel bad for guys that are going to be potentially forced into early retirement because these two sides just can't get on the same page.
I'm glad you brought up the minor league players because that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I know a few guys personally that are minor league players that that don't make $1 million every year, that do struggle along the way. And with that said, I worry about the future of the game. I actually did a video yesterday kind of recollecting the 1994 strike and the after effects of the strike. Do you worry about what could happen in 2021, 2022, and even years after that?
I worry about what happens now, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, and to answer your question, yes, I do worry about the future of the game. To me, the damage is done already. I mean, you have a lot of fans out there that are saying, the heck with it. I don't want to support these guys. If they play or not, whatever. I'm over it. I'm sick and tired of hearing billionaires fight with millionaires. And I don't necessarily think that's a terrible argument. I do worry about the game. Look, I love this game, man. I love it. I fell in love with this game as a very young boy. I tried to play it. I wasn't very good, so I ended up finding a career where I could be around it every single day. But to me, part of the damage has already been done in the last, couple of months with these guys, so publicly going back and forth. I wish some of this would just be done behind closed doors. Tell us when you got a deal. Tell us whatever the outcome's going to be. Don't tell us that, the owners are going to the players and you've got 72 hours to get back to us on a proposal we know they're going to say no to. That they're tweeting 3 minutes after it's sent to them. That McCutcheon's tweeting LOL because they know they're not going to agree. No, say we want a response in 15 minutes. Let's get some progress done. Let's get the ball moving. Let's get some traction on this whole thing. So yeah, I worry about the game. Look, if anybody out there watched Long Gone Summer a couple of nights ago on ESPN, the McGuire and Sosa documentary, it took 4 years to bring fans back. Looking back, it was a corrupt home run race where two guys had cheated to get to where they were, but that brought people back to the game. Everyone was looking in the paper the next day, and heck, you're probably even too young to remember doing that. I mean, I remember as a kid looking at the box score, getting the paper the next morning going, hey, did McGuire hit one? Did Sosa hit one? That's just how people followed it, and people were glued to this thing every single night. Baseball wasn't on national TV every night like it is now, but ESPN was covering it. They were showing games. They were talking about, hey, we're gonna air this home run chase in September because it's all anyone was talking about. So I worry if they don't play this season because of money, and even if they do, I feel like part of the damage has been done to the reputation. And, unfortunately, I think a lot of fans are going to take that out on the players because those are the guys they know. Those are the familiar faces. Most fans don't know who the owners of their team are, and they can walk past them on the street and wouldn't know that guy owned, or that guy or gal owned a major league team. So the players are the faces of this thing, and I'm afraid they're going to be the ones that are going to wear the brunt of the frustration. So I think it's smart. They're unified. They're all going out there with the same message. When and where? Tell us when. We'll be there. There's guys that would report tomorrow if they said we're going to start spring training 2.0 tomorrow. I guarantee you those camps will be full tomorrow morning.
That's great to hear. For me, on a personal note, I sort of checked out once everything started, turning into what it has turned into. If you want to argue about precautions for coronavirus and things like that, to keep safety precautions, I don't mind that. What bothers me is I follow Jeff Passan on Twitter. And every 5 minutes, every day, it's something new, and it's back and forth. And I think a lot of people, like you said, checked out because of that. What do you think would bring people back, if not this year, next year?
It's a great question, and I don't know, to be honest with you. I think if they could come to an agreement and say, you know what, 2020 is the outlier. This is not going to set a precedent for what happens beyond this. Hopefully, ideally, fingers crossed, this is the outlier year, and we can get back to everything being normal next year. But again, what scares me is that your CBA is up after next season. You've got a lot of bad blood between the owners and the players side of things. I don't think those fences are going to be mended quick enough to turn the page and say, you know what, we're all going to play nice going into those CBA negotiations. Because again, you think about the last couple of years in free agency, you had guys like Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, the big names that were out there on the market that were available, that remained unsigned, that were still available. Will they be able to come to agreements? Will they be able to play nice? I don't know. So I think if they could come to an agreement right now and say, you know what, let's put our differences aside. Let's play 70 games. Let's make the people happy. Let's let the fans feel some sense of normalcy. That may help bring people back. But then you're going to have a section of the fans who are going to say, you know what, I'm ticked and I'm not going to come back for a while.
Yeah, that's such a sad thing to see. To me, baseball already kind of struggles appealing to viewers. That's why we're always talking about changing the rules, changing the game as it is. I really worry about what happens next year with everything that's happened this season, being shut down for coronavirus, now arguing over money. I really worry about it. But I want to move into something a little bit more upbeat, if you want to. I want to talk about the Braves draft, if we can. Just to recap, they got Jared Schuster, Jesse Franklin, Spencer Strider, and Bryce Elder. Was there one pick out of those that really caught your eye, that really made you excited?
I like Schuster a lot. I really do. I watched a lot of tape on him the night they drafted him, and a guy who, this time last year was sitting, 88 to 91 with his fastball. That's 91 to 95 now, touching 97. The adjustments that he made, that he talked about, using his lower half more, implementing a hip turn into his delivery, I think have been huge for him. His changeup is filthy. The big thing for me is when you're throwing a changeup 83, 84 and your fastball is 88, not a whole lot of change in speeds there. But when you're 95, 97 and you're dropping down to 83, now you're talking about a legit weapon with that changeup. It's a plus pitch for him. I think the breaking ball is another good weapon for him. But I think, just to look at the swings and misses I saw on that changeup, it's really exciting. And again, a guy who really increased his velo. And I think that velo certainly, it rose him up the draft board quite a bit this season. So I like Schuster a lot. Look, the Braves went more, they went with the college guys this year. And when you're talking about pitchers, I like guys that pitch collegiately. They pitch at a high level. High school arms, they don't have maybe that experience. They also don't have that wear and tear on their arms. So you can make the argument that maybe high school guys long-term are better for you. But there's some talk that, Schuster could be a quick mover. He could get to the big leagues maybe. No, of course, if he performs well in the minors, he could be a fast mover. But, he could be a Kyle Wright type guy where 2 years from now, maybe we see a guy like him competing for a spot in the big leagues. So Schuster's a guy I really like a lot. Franklin, interesting, the outfielder. I like him as well, but Schuster's the guy that really caught my eye more than anybody. Watching his tape, his stuff is nasty, and that changeup is really going to be a big weapon for him as he goes forward into pro ball.
there's a lot of limited information. I was digging through it. I've been trying to cover that. There's not a lot of things to cover right now, so the draft is something I really focused on. Bryce Elder really caught my attention. I really like, the rumor is he's got the best slider in the entire draft. He was, I think we got him as a steal. I mean, he was ranked 109th in the pipeline, and we got him at pick 156, late in the draft. How big of a pickup was he late in the draft, and what was the Braves' strategy throughout the draft to make such a late pick like that?
Well, it's a great pick. Look, again, you can never have too much starting pitching or pitching in general. We know that, especially these days. So anytime you can get a guy like that who is ranked a little bit higher, I mean, the Braves were thrilled that he fell to where they could go out and snatch him up. Of course, the Braves didn't have a second-round pick this year, so they had to really. This draft was so much different. It was totally different than anything we've experienced because, you're used to having 40 rounds. The pressure and the onus was on the scouting department to go out, and these guys didn't have a whole lot of tape from this spring as well. So you really had to trust guys that have followed these players the last couple of years. You can't swing and miss on the draft this year, no pun intended. So I think, again, the fact that they went out and got college kids that have a little bit more experience, I think that was why you saw them do that, because they did only have 4 picks this year. So they wanted to make sure they had some guys with a little bit more experience. But again, you can never have too many arms in your system. You've seen that on display here with guys like Soroka and Fried and Wilson and Wright and Toussaint, who were all, competing for spots this spring. The arms are big. They're key. And anytime you can stash away guys like that who may be sleepers, the Braves really love the fact that he fell that far down.
I want to ask you this. You mentioned that they got all college guys. What that said to me, and I might be wrong here, so correct me if I'm wrong, but what that said to me is that the Braves are looking to sort of act sooner rather than later. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think because a lot of their system is either knocking on the door of being big league ready or they're here. 3-4 years ago, all the talk was keep an eye on Acuna, keep an eye on Albies, keep an eye on Soroka, and all these other guys that were coming up through the system. Well, they're all here now. So you got to replenish it, and you'd like to do that in a rather quick amount of time. Look, you get high school kids, and you got to put them in rookie ball and low A, and they got to work their way up. Some of these guys could start in high A or double A theoretically, and be quick movers. So I think replenishing that system, which has been so deep and been such a big weapon for them over the last few years, will be big for them. So finding guys that again, you don't have a whole lot. You look back to last year's draft. You bring in guys like Langoliers and Shoemake and Bryce Ball that could be quick movers, could be here in the next couple of years. But when they come, you need to have that next wave and wave after that. So again, I think the fact that it was a shorter draft this year, you wanted to have guys that could be ready sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin, last thing, I see Max behind you looking for you, so I'm going to finish up real quick.
Come on in here. Come here.
Come
here, Max. Come on in.
just tell me real quick where people can follow you and Max.
Here, let's bring him up here. Max, you can say hi to everybody. Everyone can follow us on Twitter at Kevin McAlpin, also on Instagram. Haven't had a whole lot of baseball to talk about, but we've got a lot of photos and videos of this guy at swim team and going out and playing wiffle ball and everything. So, you know what? We're turning a negative into a positive. We haven't had baseball, but we've also had a lot of father-son bonding time as he puts the earbuds in here. So we've had a lot of fun just having some extra family time. And we got a baby on the way in October, right? We got a little baby coming. He's going to be a big brother. So we've got the nursery done, and man, we've just had a lot of bonus family time, which we don't get during summer. So it's been a lot of fun, right? Yeah.
All right, man. I really appreciate it, Max. Good to see you, buddy.
Say bye. Say bye.
Bye.
See y'all later. Thanks, Kevin. I always appreciate talking to you.
Always good to talk to you. Thanks for having me.